Hi everyone, it's Neve here and welcome to the Scrap FX YouTube channel. Today we're going to be making an encaustic assemblage canvas using a lot of the new Scrap FX products for this month. So this is actually a canvas that I have done about 10 years ago, and when I was cleaning up my storeroom I came across it and thought it would work perfectly for this project I had in mind. So it's actually done with encaustic wax in the back, which is beeswax melted and brushed on to have collage papers in the background, and then some of those collage papers were aged with some crackle paint and just a little bit of ink, and you can see I've got some Da Vinci horses there that were glued on as well. So it was just a really sort of eclectic piece. I really liked it, but it had sat there for 10 years not being used. So when I came across this vintage release from Scrap FX, I knew it would be a good mix. So I'm going in, I've used a lace stencil in the background. You can see the difference in colour with the beige crackle paint, so it's sort of that creamy colour, and I've put some ink over the top with a stencil through it. And then I've gone through with the grey watering can, archival ink to stamp the medallion stamp in the background. And I'm just playing around. So I've got the lace piece down the bottom that I just cut out to fit on the canvas as a little bit of a border down the bottom. I know I want to use one of these silhouette medallions as well in my piece somewhere, and this is one of the new stencils with both the silhouette and the front facing woman. So I'm using Payne's grey paint, which is not as deep or dark as a black, so it gives you a slightly softer colour, which is really good when you're doing vintage work because it's not quite as overpowering as having a black on the page. This is just some vintage text that I had in my collage stash. It's from an old poetry book, so I thought sort of having that poetic type text in the background might be a cool look. Now, I don't really have any ideas for these. I'm sort of just playing around with them to see what I like. And while I really quite liked both those images in that medallion, it wasn't working for me brilliantly well as I was going along. So there was a lot of sort of playing around with all the different bits and pieces that I had, trying to work out what I actually wanted to do. I decided to go back in and fussy cut around this silhouette, because having the text around it, while I really liked it, took away a lot from the medallion that I was putting it on. I was kind of thinking it could be like a halo piece around the image, and yeah, with the book edges on it, it just sort of blended it in too much to the background. So you can just see me playing around, and I was a bit too vigorous with what I was doing, and I managed to tear my piece of collage. So after I'd been sort of wandering around, I did have a slight break because one of my children woke up and was crying. I had this sort of epiphany that I had a whole heap of collage bits and pieces in my drawer next to me. So I decided, instead of trying to make it 2D, why not go and make it as textural as possible. So you can see in that little break I came back and I went through my collage drawer and just pulled out a whole heap of stuff. In that drawer I tend to throw in bits and pieces that I may have made or stamped out that didn't work, and I've rescued from a piece that's damaged and I've pulled off and put into that. And that's where that stamped image of the girl came from. So I stamped it on in sepia ink, punched some holes, put some leather through it and some beads in it. So that's a piece I had from a while ago. I put some black cordboard behind it just to pop it up from the background, and I decided that I really liked my medallion with that image in it, but I actually wanted something else. So I've now stacked the two images over the top of each other. By having the stamped woman off center, it meant that the beads weren't covering up the horse as well, so it sort of worked in my favor. Unfortunately, it kind of has hidden the fact that that's a silhouette of a woman behind there, but you kind of get the hint, and I still like that darkness behind the image. So I've got a little bit of fly wire here, some vintage measuring tape. I've got some of these metal medallions from Prima, from the Finnabar range, and that's where those fronds are from. You can see me just testing everything out as I go along. I'm not 100% sure where I want to put things, how it's all working together. I'm just testing stuff out. To glue everything down, I'm using the Dina Wakley Ultra Thick Gel Medium, which takes a little while to dry, but it adheres everything, whether it's wood, plastic, anything you've got, it will stick down. So it's a really worthwhile thing to have. So you can see I've stuck down the lace at the bottom of this page, which is being tea dyed, and now I'm going to stick down these little pearl beads. Again, they just add something to the lace trim that I've got there from Scrap FX. So it's just sort of building up all these textures. I'm using the Connect glue to glue the chipboard down. I find that's really good for the chipboard because it adheres really, really quickly. And because it's got the fine nib in it, it's really easy to adhere really fine cut pieces like those medallions in the chipboard. So you can see I'm quite generous in my ultra thick gel medium as I'm putting it down. I'm using a palette knife to do that. It does dry clear, so if you do see anything through your image, it will dry clear. Down the bottom of the beads you can see that white gel medium, but after a day it's clear, it just blends in. After I've done that, I'm still playing around with some bits and pieces. The coins, some buttons, those little metal leaves. I just wasn't 100% sure how I wanted to finish this piece off. So I decided to go in with the Finnabair sentiment stickers. They're very much like the Tim Holtz stickers, but they're aged papers. So the front bit of it is just words, and the second part of it is sayings, and they come in 3 different shades. So you've got this sort of whiter tea dyed type page, you've got a more cream vintage page, and you've got a greeny type colour page as well. So you can sort of blend them into what you're doing. Of course, like anything, you can always change the colour with your dye inks to blend it into what you want, but this sort of fitted in really nicely with the page that I had, or the paper that I was gluing it down onto. So you can see here I'm still auditioning different bits and pieces, and I really wasn't sure. I glued the coins down the bottom, and I decided I needed something else round sort of to finish it off. So I found these vintage buttons and I glued those down on the page. You can see over there I've got the lady with the necklace on. I decided not to use her, but I think I'm going to use her on a card because I actually really like that medallion underneath her as sort of like a lace blouse almost, and how her head's protruding out of it. So I really quite like that. Just around the edge of my canvas, I used some ink just to darken up the edge and give it sort of a vignette. That's not the right word. Look around the edge. So this is a close-up. You can see all the textures and the beeswax and the crackle and the layers that I've put onto this page. It was lots of fun to do, and I hope you have a go, particularly with the new release from the Scrap FX vintage release for September. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye for now.